Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. Yes, my name is Andrea Grant, and Director of Digital Marketing at Cabela's. I oversee an office of 65 individuals in our remote location just outside of Denver. For those of you who are not familiar with Cabela's, we're a national retailer specializing in hunting, fishing, and camping sports with 78 retail locations, approximately $1 billion online. And prior to the Bass Pro acquisition this past fall, we were the only retailer with our own private bank charter on top 15 credit card issuers in the US. So today we are talking about people-centric marketing, and in the midst of this holiday season when most retailers are making up a majority of their annual sales, I'd like to create a dialogue with you guys today regarding the balance between people first and business-driven marketing, and how that balance can actually create meaningful relationships with actual people, not just customer ID 1, 2, 3, 4. And how this approach could perhaps extend the livelihood of a brand in the era of fair weather loyalty. If anything, as we close upon this year and begin another, this could perhaps be a friendly reminder that the customer is the reason why we are in business. So let's first, and yes, we're working with a fickle, there we go, oh, that's okay. So let's first begin with the state of retail. So I think we can all agree that retail is undergoing a dramatic transformation, one of which I would argue is favorable for the consumer. Consumer spending, though, is down, right? And younger generations are spending their dollars on trips, entertainment, experiences, and Amazon has completely decoupled themselves from retail, investing, I'll click again, there you go, completely investing in artificial intelligence. And I believe those that will survive long-term are well-run organizations with a solid investment in technology, human capital, and a vision to put the customer first. The reality, however, is that, Sorry, guys. The reality is that so many organizations are houses of silos, right? And leaders don't communicate, or at least they don't communicate well with one another. Department purpose is completely misaligned with arbitrary goals, and department-level incentives just drive negative behavior. You guys can click for me. Thanks. It just becomes a really, really vicious cycle. And where does that leave the customer? They're absolutely nowhere in sight. But consumers are the heart of innovation, and all indications suggest that the era of an empowered consumer is here to stay. And loyalty, in part, is tied to how we personally are invested in each of the brands we buy. 45% of customers research brand values, and 50% of customers completely stop shopping at their favorite brands if their values do not align. So brands who remain stagnant or fail to find their own voice or just simply don't evolve will become a name of the past. So how do we as marketers stand up to this challenge and actually drive change? So it begins with first and third party data. And secondly, it really takes those opportunities that we see within the data and then actually asking our customers what they want. Someone once told me kindly that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so shut up and listen. And I have taken those words to heart and have done that in every aspect of life, but it also applies here. And then third really is just getting your butt off the couch and taking action. So let's look at how organizations are becoming more customer-oriented, customer-driven, and customer-focused. So it begins with a basic desire to put others before yourself, right? So this can be applied to your employees, your team, your customer. My husband would like to remind me this could also be applied to your personal life. But putting the customer first is not a strategy, it's definitely a culture, and it should be stitched into every fabric within your company ethos. Customer centricity strives to build healthy relationships with your customer by identifying their needs and then providing them a positive customer experience. This can be distilled down to one quote, which we have within the Cabela's digital office from our former CEO. It simply just says, the customer is in the center of everything we do. And if you're ever fortunate to visit Home Depot's corporate office in Atlanta, you will find a cutout of each of their customer personas in their conference rooms. It's a friendly reminder that the customer needs to be a part of the conversation. It's also important to note, however, the moment you became an employee of your company, you stopped becoming the customer. Your perception will be forever skewed, and it's another reason why you should ask the customer. Data. So it's important to evaluate data for trends and outliers, of course, but it's more important to understand the various nuances within your customer's journey. So what are the customers telling you through online transactional data, their online behavior? What's causing that customer friction, and what are the sticking points at retail? Data is also very important for that ongoing puzzle. One of the ways in which brands can compete with Amazon is investing in the single view of a consumer. And I'm sure our friends here at Adobe would love to share what they're doing with Nordstrom to consolidate that online-offline data from Hot Look to Trunk Club to more expensive items at Nordstrom. It's not only a strategic BI tool, but it also informs channel level managers on what content to develop, who to send it to, and when. And then ask your customer, what do they want? This primary and secondary data research is vital. And not only is the input invaluable, but my goodness, the amount of ideas that your customer can inspire in one of these focus groups is insane. And the energy and that you walk away personally, you just really want to go and solve all of their problems. The Cabela's selling proposition was actually born from customer feedback. So hunt, fish, camp, shoot. It's a part of the DNA of our customer, and it's what inspired It's in Your Nature. Customer research can also be very expensive, so some of that low-hanging fruit, if you don't already do it today, you should definitely read through your customers' ratings and reviews or their Facebook posts. And if you or your team don't sit down with your customer call center, your care center team at least once a month, please do it. You hear firsthand all of the customer friction points. And then give your customers what they want. Sell them what they want to buy or what they don't yet know they want to buy. Provide them the content that's relevant within their own personal shopping experience, not what you think they should get, like an email every single day the month of December. What's the story you're telling them? Are the retail stocked with not only product that DMA is purchasing, but are the sales associates experts? And does retail provide the speed and convenience that they're looking for? Does your brand stand for something impactful like Patagonia? This is what 95% of customers are looking for when they're deciding to do business with us or not. And then acknowledging the customer. So if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be in business. Speak with them, create a conversation, respond to them on social, whether in good times or in bad times. Create a relationship, add a little humanity, just be human with people. And then you gotta stick with it. So in order to be successful, an organization needs to continuously change and adapt with the consumer's ever-changing needs and desires. But putting the customer first can be very, very difficult. I live this firsthand, especially when it comes from the top down, right? We need to grow our email list. You need to send email every day. We don't respond on social if it's something that might be controversial, or why are we spending more in this department than the other? So you really just got to stick with it and know that putting the customer first is essential for long-term retention and loyalty. And I will just end with a quote from the man behind that little fast food restaurant known as McDonald's. If you work for just money, you'll never make it. But if you love what you're doing and you always put the customer first, success will be yours. So like I mentioned, we want to create a dialogue, have a conversation, not only with our customers, but also here in this room. So Steve has the microphone. So we'd love to hear from you. I know it's early, but we'd love to hear from you some success stories or maybe some various opportunities, how you've worked internally or with your customers. And if nobody raises their hand, then I certainly hope that we can have conversations throughout the day.
Thank you, Andrea. Let me start by throwing it back to you about what are some of the internal challenges in terms of breaking down silos at Cabela's that you've encountered, and how are you solving for that part?
Yeah, so, well, we've gone through quite a few changes at Cabela's over the past couple of years. So we were in strategic review for 24 months and then just purchased by Bass Pro. So that obviously is a hurdle all in and up to itself. We're starting over again, essentially. And yes, we have had vision that's ebbed and flowed over the past couple of years. We haven't really had the North Star that we really needed. So departments have created their own. And all of those North Stars may not work well with one another. Merchants are, yes, very much incentivized to sell within their own particular department, but that's not where the customer's buying. So lots of healthy conversations and debates about where we're putting the dollars and who might be missing the customer, right? So yes, within our office of 65 folks, we very, very much focus on the customer, and it absolutely has become the mantra, at least within our department. And it's our war cry as we go into conversations with executives.
Does anybody have any questions of Andrea or want to add to the conversation of how they've started to solve for some of these problems? As she said, we sort of wanted to start on a note of conversation and get you guys engaged in sharing some of the ways that you're encountering some of the same challenges. When you have a comment or a question, please stand and tell us who you are and who you're with so we get to know you right away.
Hi, I'm Brent with Overstock.com.
Hey, Brent.
And I had a question about scalability as far as getting your customer feedback. A lot of times qualitative will trump quantitative, vice versa. The question that I had is, how do you scale and try to get all that customer feedback on a one-on-one basis?
So customer feedback, like in ratings and reviews, so we use Brozara Voice, so it's all aggregated there, right? So, and then social, we use Sprinkler. So we look at the various trends, so we tag every single post, so we can understand which groupings they should go in. From there, we also work with our call center as well, so they have a very detailed report that they put out on a weekly basis, and it too is also categorized. So then we can start looking at trends. We work with not only our enterprise analytics team, but we also work with our user experience team, and we literally plot it all out on a wall. I would say that there are a lot of themes that continuously reappear year after year. So it can be real time, but it's not always real time, especially when we're putting it up on the wall and deciding which one we're going to attack first. But that's how we do it, is we try to pull all these disparate data sources and then start to visualize it so we too can understand that friction point.
How are you determining that your customers don't want to get hit every day in December with an email? You know, is it simply using technology and fall off from that, or are you finding other ways to get feedback from your customers to understand how and where and how often they want to be communicated with? Yeah,
so we had a directive from our previous CMO earlier this year to send more email. So essentially put all segmentation on the back burner and just send literally a blasted email every day. And so we did it, much to the chagrin of all the data that told us previously. So yeah, we started sending every day for 3 months, and we found that although demand was up, so you can absolutely see those spikes every single day that you send an email, but our customers were completely tuning us out. So they weren't opting out of an email. They just were no longer opening or clicking through. And then the profitability of those emails were completely going down. So our DPE was dropping at a rate that just we weren't comfortable with anymore. The cost of sending the email was outweighing what we were actually making.
What was the impetus for that strategy? I mean, was it branding? Did they think they were going to drive
I don't think
store
there was a
traffic?
strategy.
Okay, it was a strategy.
Yeah. I think it came from conversations with other brands. So, and I found this too, right? So as we're talking with Bass Pro, for example, we talk about what's your email list? Well, what's your active email list? Well, it's half of what they had said. So I think it actually came from conversations with other brands, like on the Google advisory board, for example, where, you know, their lists were maybe 2 or 3 times larger, but in reality, their active list was probably the same size.
I'm curious about the connection between email and your retail presence, and the degree to which you're using email to drive in-store traffic. I think Cabela's is in a bit of a unique situation. For anyone who hasn't been to a Cabela's, and I can tell you, the best way to view Cabela's is if you're, like my wife and I, vegan. So there is nothing in Cabela's of interest to us, actually. But when we go in, it is quite obviously an experience. It feels like a theme park for people not like us, and which is great, I think, for you guys, but it really speaks to the ways in which there is a very rich and robust retail experience to going to a Cabela's. And I'm curious how the content and the strategy around email is designed to both reflect that, but also drive people into it.
Yeah, so first and foremost, email drives online traffic, for sure. And this comes also from the siloed approach or overall goals. But we do look at where customers are shopping. So within each of our emails, we absolutely have an area for retail. So we leverage that data to say, your retail store is Hamburg. This is the retail events, the top 5 retail events that are going on in Hamburg within the next week. So we pull that into our retail pod. We also have retail-specific emails as well. We don't capture email yet at the POS. It is something that we're working on, especially with Bass Pro. But we do use transactional data at retail. We use the transactional data online and also behaviors online to trigger various messages. I think we actually have 44 various triggers currently in place today based upon your online and retail transactions. And so, yes, we absolutely look at both the online and the retail experience. But we also cater a ton of camping gear as well, if you're interested in that. It's a big piece of our business.
I spoke too soon. Please don't talk to my
and
wife.
fishing.
She'll
You can
make
catch
me
and
go
release.
camping.
It's okay.
And finally, I want to go back to that focus group point that you made and how the focus group sort of blew your mind and actually helped drive branding decisions. Could you tell us a little bit about how that worked, how you moved from talking to customers to an actual brand message, as what, you know, how that phrasing evolved out of actually talking to customers?
Yeah, it actually came directly from the customer's mouth. They said that hunting, fishing, and camping is in their nature, and it was an amazing just wordplay on the word nature, but it directly came from a customer's mouth. So we should probably give him you know, a little bit of credit or royalties in the usage, but yeah, it's a part of it. It's who they are. It's how they grew up. They grew up hunting or they grew up fishing. It was a part of their livelihood. And customers started using it on social media. So we saw it in hashtags. And from there, it became this huge campaign that had legs. And we use it today. We also leverage the hashtag for user-generated content. And this was the first year that we started our own UGC campaign. So we had a Thank You Dad campaign for Father's Day. We had It's in Your Nature for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and it's all user-generated content.
Andrea, thank you very much for opening us out.
Sure.